Welcome everyone, Orlando Torresia from thinkistorresia.com. Well, let's review what we found in a simple note of a property. The actual charges that we have seen. Well, we have seen a mortgage in favor of Banco Bilbao Vizcaya as security for 120,000 euros of principal, 9,600 euros of ordinary interest, 38,400 of default interest, 20,400 of legal costs and expenses, 3,600 euros of other expenses, and fourth registration according to deed authorized in the year such and such, in the month such and such, by the notary of Madrid such and such, with protocol number such and such. Well, just to mention that this charge, 120,000 euros, is greater. Sorry, this loan, what is owed on the mortgage, is greater than the sale price. This is interesting because the sale price we have seen is 96,000 euros, but what is outstanding at the time of sale is 58,000. But as you can see, if that weren't the case, imagine that the sale price is 96,000 and they owe 110,000, for example. Well, that difference, 14,000 euros, would have to be paid by the seller on the day of signing, because otherwise the buyer would only pay 96,000 euros. And the buyer's bank would only give whatever amount based on the percentage, 80% of that amount. That is, the seller would have to put in money in order to sell. But that's not the case here, because we know they owe less than the sale price. But you see, this is important and must be verified. Then, this property is subject for 5 years to the payment of the complementary settlement, which, if applicable, is due for the corresponding tax, which in this case would be the tax on documented legal acts, which with a loan is paid by the bank on the loan amount. Of course, there are 5 years in case it hasn't been settled properly, hasn't been done correctly, etc. It's always stated like that. Anyway, it's always advisable to check, if possible, the 600 forms to see that they're correctly done. And then we see a precautionary annotation of an embargo, which is not usually common, although we do see many. But it's not so usual in favor of the General Treasury of the Social Security, in procedure number such and such, processed by the General Treasury of the Social Security in the province in question, claiming 718.74 euros of principal and 143.74 of enforcement surcharge and 4.88 for costs. That is, for a very small amount. Notice that the owner of this property probably didn't even realize. And there is a precautionary annotation of embargo from Social Security for 718.74 euros. You see, in the civil procedure law there is a list when it comes to embargoes, and bank accounts are above properties. So bank accounts would take priority. Most likely they didn't find any bank accounts in his name and seized an asset, which in this case is the flat, and they embargoed it for a very small amount. It's been noted as a precautionary annotation. It's not an embargo, it's a preventive annotation for 718.74 euros. Well, this needs to be paid and then submitted to the land registry so it can be cancelled. Normally, on the day of signing the sale, if it is sold, the payment to the General Treasury of the Social Security is submitted. It's mentioned in the sale deed and cancelled. So, there's nothing more to it, or it goes into the cancellation deed of the loan. So, there's really nothing more to it to cancel it, because it's a very small amount. But as we say, they probably weren't aware. So, if you have a simple note and don't know how to interpret it, or you want to request a simple note to see how your property is, because see, this person didn't know they had a precautionary annotation of embargo from the General Treasury of the Social Security. Well, we recommend from here that you request, from time to time, not every year, but every 2 or 3 years, a simple note of your properties to see what actual charges there are, to see if there's any charge. For example, like this one from the General Treasury of the Social Security. Well, we can help you, for a very small fee, via video call, at the number shown on screen, 693,023,926, with +34 if you're contacting from outside Spain, for a very small fee, as we said. So, until next videos, God willing, Orlando Torresia, thinkistorresia.com. Thank you.